I am 28, pregnant, and engaged. But the baby growing inside of me does not belong to my fiancé. I told him it did. I looked Jason straight in the eyes and swore the baby was his. I even cried when I said it, like I believed my own lie. But the truth is far worse than cheating. The truth is, the father of my baby is my therapist. Not just any therapist. A man old enough to be my father. A man I trusted with my darkest memories. A man who was supposed to help me heal, not hold me while I broke. And now, he knows I lied. He is unraveling fast. And yesterday, he said something I cannot forget. If you do not tell Jason the truth, I will. But he does not know that Jason is his own estranged son. Before I continue, I just want to say thank you so much for being here. To everyone who has subscribed to this channel, you have no idea how much your support means to me. And to our new and returning viewers who are yet to subscribe, I honestly cannot wait for you to hit that button. Your support is the fuel that powers this channel forward. Please do not forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Every word, every reaction, your voices matter. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. My name is Vera. I was born and raised in Nevada. Trauma has followed me like a shadow since I was 13. My mother died by overdose. My stepfather drank until his rage became fists. I ran from one relationship to the next, hoping someone would finally stay and make me feel safe. Then came Jason. He was different at first. Structured, handsome, ambitious. He worked in finance, talked like a politician, and kissed like a stranger. We were perfect on paper. But privately, I felt invisible. His love was cold, conditional. So I started therapy. Jason insisted on it, actually. He thought I needed to fix my emotional baggage. That was how I met Christopher. He was calm, older, silver hair, soft eyes. He never rushed me. He just listened. And when he spoke, it was like he could see parts of me no one else ever had. Week after week, I returned to that quiet room. Told him everything. My shame, my fear, my loneliness. He never judged me, not even once. And then, one night after session, I stayed longer than usual. I had just lost my old friend to suicide. I broke down completely. Jason barely blinked when I told him, but Christopher, he pulled his chair closer. His hand touched mine. His touch felt like warmth I had not felt in years. And suddenly, everything I knew about boundaries, rules, ethics vanished. That night, grief and passion collided. I remember the tears. I remember his whisper. You are not broken. I wish I could say I walked away and never looked back. But I did not. I went back the next week. And the week after. A month later, I missed my period. 2 pink lines confirmed it. I was pregnant. My hands shook. My heart raced. Jason had not touched me in over 3 months. If I told him the truth, he would leave. So, I told the biggest lie of my life. I walked into the living room, showed him the test, and said, "We are having a baby." He smiled for the first time in weeks. But behind my back, Christopher was spiraling. He started texting me, calling me, asking to meet outside of sessions, saying things like, "This baby changes everything." And then one evening, he showed up near my apartment unannounced. He looked pale, shaky, almost manic. Then he said something that froze my blood. "You told him the baby is his?" "Vera, if you do not tell Jason the truth, I will." I stood there speechless. Not because of his threat, but because he had no idea what he was walking into. Christopher had no idea. That Jason is his own son. I barely slept after that night. I just kept staring at the ceiling, one hand on my stomach, the other gripping my phone, dreading another call from Christopher. He had never spoken to me like that before. Not in session. Not even on the night we crossed the line. But now his voice trembled with panic, obsession, something unsteady. He had become a storm I could not predict, and I was holding the match that lit the fire. By the next morning, I turned off my phone. I told Jason I was going for a walk, but instead, I went to Christopher's office, uninvited. He looked like he had not slept in days. His eyes were red. He had stopped shaving. Papers were scattered across his desk like he no longer cared about order. "I need you to calm down," I said. He stood up. "You are carrying my child, Vera. You do not get to tell me to calm down." I flinched. I had never seen him like that. He was usually so composed, measured. But now, he was unraveling, and I could feel the weight of my choices crushing both of us. "I have a right to be in that child's life," he said. "You do not understand," I whispered. "If Jason finds out, it will destroy him." Christopher's jaw clenched. "You think I care about that man's feelings?" I froze. "You should. You really should." And then I said it. "You should care. Because Jason is your son." He stared at me, blank. A second passed. Then another. He laughed. But it was not joy. It was the kind of laugh that breaks into sobs. "That is not funny," he said. "I am not joking, Christopher." I told him what I had discovered months ago, long before the baby. I told him how I had found an old family photo in Jason's childhood box, a photo of a younger Christopher, smiling next to Jason's mother. I had Googled his full name that same week. I saw an old wedding announcement. I saw the divorce record. I connected the dots. But I had buried it, denied it, until now. He collapsed into his chair, head in his hands. He was 10 the last time I saw him. "I know," I said quietly. He wept, silently, like a man choking on everything he had lost. I never thought I would see him again. And now? He looked up at me with so much shame, it made my stomach twist. "You should have told me," he said. "And you should have never let it happen," I snapped. "You were my therapist." Silence fell. The truth stung both ways. I left his office shaking, guilt flooding my throat like poison. That night, I came home and tried to act normal. I cooked dinner. I asked Jason about his day. He said work was stressful, that his father had tried to reach out once, years ago, but he had never answered. "He was dead to me after he left," Jason muttered. I nodded. My heart pounded. Then, a few days later, it all came crashing down. Jason was in the kitchen when I heard him call out, "Hey, Vera? Who is Christopher?" I froze. "Why?" He held up his phone. "There is a voicemail from some guy named Christopher. I guess he dialed by mistake. Listen to this." Before I could stop him, he pressed play. Christopher's voice spilled into the room. Shaky. Emotional. "Jason, you do not know me anymore, but I know you are engaged to Vera. I need to talk to you. It is about the baby. There is something you deserve to know." Jason paused it. His face turned white. "What the hell is going on?" he whispered. And in that moment I knew my lies were not just cracking. They were about to explode. Jason stared at me like I was a stranger, like I had just taken a sledgehammer to his entire life, and smiled while doing it. "Vera," he said, his voice shaking. "What does he mean it is about the baby?" I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. My body turned to stone. He stepped closer. "Tell me. Right now." "I swear to God, if you lie to me again." I looked him in the eyes. My voice cracked. "I am so sorry." His mouth fell open. That was all it took. That one sentence confirmed everything. He stumbled back like I had hit him. "You cheated on me," he said quietly. "You cheated. And you got pregnant." I nodded, tears spilling down my face. "With my father?" He choked. "Christopher is my father, Vera." I tried to explain, tried to say how I did not know at first, tried to tell him about the trauma, the loneliness, the confusion, the grief. But nothing I said mattered. He stood in the center of our living room, broken, his fists clenched, his chest rising and falling like he could barely breathe. Then he turned and left. No shoes, no phone. Just walked out the front door and disappeared into the Las Vegas night. I collapsed on the floor. Hours passed, maybe days. I do not remember. When I finally checked my phone, there were no messages from Jason, but there was one from Marla. "Are you okay? You need to call me." Jason told me everything. I called her. She answered on the first ring. "I do not even know who you are anymore," she said. "How could you do that to him? To yourself?" I sobbed. "I never meant to hurt anyone. I did not plan for any of this." "But you lied," she said coldly. "And you made me part of your lie. I defended you, Vera." She hung up. Later that week, I found out Christopher had been hospitalized. He had checked himself into a mental health clinic after a breakdown. He could not handle the guilt, the shame, the full circle of what he had done, not just with me, but with Jason. The baby, the abandonment, the years lost. It was all too much. And as for Jason, he never came back. He moved out 2 weeks later. Left a note. No goodbye. Just 2 sentences. "I loved you, but you broke something that can never be fixed." Now, I sit alone in a quiet apartment. My stomach is growing every day. I do not know if this child will ever know their father. I do not know if I will ever forgive myself. But I have stopped lying. That is where I had to begin. There are nights I wake up gasping, thinking I hear Jason's voice. Days I almost call Marla. Hours I spend replaying everything, wondering if one different decision could have saved us all. But I cannot change the past. I can only raise this child with honesty, because I have learned this the hardest way. Secrets always rise. Lies rot everything. And when the truth finally comes, it destroys everything in its path. Thank you for listening to my story. If this moved you, upset you, or made you think, please share your thoughts in the comments. Was Vera wrong from the start? Or was she just another broken soul trying to survive? What would you have done in her shoes? Do not forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, stay strong, stay honest, and stay true to yourself.